but there was some conversation that the housing prices went up 5% year over year. Did you guys hear that? Am I the only one that listened to the news today?
Yes. You probably are.
I don't want you to watch TV. I don't want you to watch the news. I don't want you to read the newspapers. Okay, I get that. Why is this the only thing that you listen to me on? Well, that was on the news today. By the way, did everybody know there's an election today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So, I don't know if this happens, but I hear it occasionally, where you have a client that says to you, gee, I heard the prices are going up a little bit. Why don't I wait and my house will be worth a little bit more later on? Everybody with me on this?
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes.
Okay, if you're out prospecting, if you're out talking to anyone at all, they're saying that to you, okay? So we have different ways of handling in the different situations, and we talked about different things before. And I really thought about this morning because you've got to get really good at this. You've got to get really, really good at this. First of all, you had to determine whether or not, and you can take some notes on this if you want, because I'm just going to kind of walk through a little bit of the scripting on it, okay? You have to determine whether or not you really have a client. You know, the guy says, well, I'll wait for a year to sell my house, okay? So, of course, we go into this immediate, oh my gosh, I have a great client. You know, I got to do something with him, right? So we don't ask any more questions. We run comps. We set up an appointment. We do all this kind of stuff. We beg him for an appointment. We get to the house and say, yeah, but I'm really not selling. I'm not going anywhere. My kids are in school for the next 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we're not moving. Okay? So we've got to ask a couple of other qualifying questions to know whether we have a true client or not. So I'm not going to go through that right now. That's in a different qualifying. But let's assume for a minute that the person really would consider selling if we made some sense out of it. And since the news is using 5%, let's use the same 5% that's out in the marketplace today. So the buyer says, the seller says, I would sell my $500,000 house. Why should I sell my house now when I can wait maybe another year or so and my house will be worth more money? It's kind of a hard argument because the truth is that prices are moving up a little bit and we're going in that direction. We have to ask another question. So let me ask you something. If you were to sell this house and move, where would you go next? And the client says to you, well, I was thinking about buying a house over in this neighborhood. Great. So what's important about that neighborhood? Because we want to establish whether or not they're really interested. And then you also ask a question, would you be buying a house for more money than you'd probably sell this house for, or less money? Ask that question. More money or less money? In this instance, the client says, no, I'd probably be buying it for a little bit more money. In fact, the neighborhood I'm looking at is probably worth about $750,000, and the house that I have now is worth, let's say, $500,000. All right? Great. So you would start to do the math on this and start to work with the client. So let's assume, Mr. Jones, that we do wait a year and we get you an additional 5% on your $500,000 house. So throw me a pen real quick. Thank you. So 5% on a $500,000 house is an additional $25,000. So that's really hard to argue. He's going to probably get $25,000 more, right? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. And his $750,000 house, if it's either going to, is that going to go up or down? Ask him the question. Do you think that house, Mr. Jones, is going to go up, or it's going to go down, or stay the same? Ask him those three questions. Well, probably go up a little bit. If he says the price is going to go down on the $750,000 house, that's another red flag that you're not really dealing with somebody who's serious. Okay? Because there's logically, unless you're in a specific area, there's no reason to assume that a house in this general neighborhood is going to go up any less or any more than a house in an adjoining neighborhood. Agreed? Okay. So 5% on $750,000 is 37.5, is that correct? So that's 37.5. So you subtract 25,000 from 37.5, and you get $12,500. So the first thing, Mr. Jones, is that by waiting 1 year, on that point alone, it's going to cost you $12,500, assuming it only goes up 5%. If it goes up 10%, could be a different number. Now, let me ask you a question. Are interest rates going to be going up, down, or stay the same in the next 12 months? We think up slightly, not dramatically. I don't know if it's going to go up 4 or 5%, but asking the client again, getting the client to give you the answers, how much, Mr. Jones, do you think the interest rates might go up? Will they go up 2, 3, 4%, or they go up 1 or 2%? If they go up 1%, let's just use that number. So if the client is going to finance $300,000, I'm just going to use a number of $300,000, and interest goes up 1%, how much is that per year?
$1,500.
It's $3,000, right? So that's $3,000. So 1% is $3,000, okay? So now, okay, Mr. Jones, now the average person in California stays in a piece of property anywhere from 7 to 12 years. How long do you think you might stay in this next property? Let's just use 10 years for the sake of this math. So I'm going to stay in this house 10 years, and I'm going to pay an additional $3,000 a year, the 1% of interest, for 10 years. So how much is that? That's $30,000. So now I'm in this deal $42,500. Plus, I'm going to also pay 5% more, because the house for $750,000 went up $37,500, right? Right. So I have to pay 1.25% in taxes on the $37,500. So what's that, about $500 a year? More or less, quick math. So that's $500 a year. How many years am I going to keep the house? 10 years. So that's another $5,000. So by waiting 1 more year, it's going to cost you, Mr. Jones, $47,500. Do you really want to do that?
Absolutely not.
That makes sense, you guys? You have to be able to have this conversation. You don't have to be specific and 100% of the numbers, but remember what we talked about before. If you don't understand the numbers, don't start having a conversation with them. Don't go down that street. Because the minute you start stumbling on numbers, you lose all credibility. Okay? I don't care how smart you are, what a great salesperson you are, if you're stumbling on numbers and you're getting some stuff wrong, you're going to lose all credibility.